I would like to introduce Nick Bayham from he's a Deputy Director of County Communications. So Nick Bayham is a Deputy Director of the 911 Communications of Santa Clara County, and he oversees 4 different divisions within the organizations that support 911 organizations. Over the last several years, his team has completed several technology upgrades to the 911 center, vital to serving its public safety mission. One of these includes the implementation of a new computer-aided dispatch system that has allowed for improvements organization-wide. Now, I will hand it over to Nick, and Nick is joining remotely for the just unforeseen circumstances. I will hand it over to Nick.
Thank you, Yoko. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the impact of GIS on 911. And I appreciate the opportunity to present remotely due to unforeseen circumstances. So technology is always a benefit in many ways, I feel like. So I'll be speaking to you all today from the end user side. I am not a map expert. I utilize maps and GIS in many ways. But again, as a dispatch center, we are that end user, right? We are the folks that use the work and the effort and the data to do our job and to utilize it as a tool to provide a service to the public. And it's a critical tool for the 911 center. So as we go through my presentation today, we'll touch on kind of how 911 functions, how county comm functions, and then how those maps integrate into our everyday world. I think before we go on, I do want to say thank you to Yoko and her team, Stephen Hong, Matthew DeCambra. Those folks are the people that help make our maps function in our comm center, and that's critical for us. A lot of our dispatchers rely on these tools, but don't necessarily know exactly how it all comes together. So special thank you to them for all the hard work they do to keep our mapping systems up to date and functioning effectively for us and our first responders. So I'll go ahead and move on to the first slide here. So County Communications is a consolidated 911 center. We are rare in that note in terms of we dispatch police, fire, and EMS. So you can see the agencies that we dispatch for. We're located on Communications Hill over off of Highway 87, just south of downtown San Jose. We've been there since the 1950s. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. We're responsible for dispatching over 21 agencies. So we have a large footprint throughout the county. We are the county's 911 provider for public 911 safety services. And those 911 agencies that we provide service for aren't just law enforcement or fire. It's also local government and other municipalities, Department of Water, things like that. Mapping plays a critical role in all of those functions. We serve over 1.9 million residents, and we cover over 1,300 miles of geography in the county. Obviously, Santa Clara County is a unique outlay. You've got a lot of urban environment plus a lot of rural, so the map plays a critical role. We have a staff of 124 employees. It's a mix of technical and dispatch staff plus support staff. A couple of things about our agency that I think are really worth note. We are a post-certified organization, which means we adhere to the police officer standards and training regulations set forth for dispatch in the state of California. We are also a tri-community dispatch center. And so what that means is, and Amin had just spoken about our new CAD system a moment ago, with the implementation of our new CAD, we've brought online new call processing protocols. And so our dispatchers are using protocols for all 3 realms of dispatch: police, fire, and EMS. We're one of only 2 agencies in the state of California to currently be utilizing those protocols. And we're also an ACE accredited center throughout the nation, one of only a handful of agencies to achieve that mark. And that's based on our ability to process calls at a high level of compliance. So we're very proud of our organization. It's a unique organization here in the Bay Area in terms of that we are consolidated. Dispatch centers are unique. They're all different. There are different sizes and makeups. They're usually located within a police department, as many of you may know. For us, however, we are a consolidated agency, so it speaks to the importance of maps as we kind of go through what our agencies, kind of service they provide. Next slide, please. So what's the mission of 911? The basic mission is to connect the public with our first responders. We are that bridge when someone calls for help to ensure that they have adequate support and instructions in the moment, but to gather that information that's critical for our first responders to provide a response and to provide a response that arrives them safely. And maps play a critical role in that. Gathering information from the public is our primary responsibility, and then getting people that help. Over 600,000 calls are made nationwide every day to 911. County Comm processes roughly 1,800 calls. About 300 of those are 911. The rest are non-emergency, things of that nature, but 600,000 calls a day. So it's a lot of calls for help from the public where these systems are being utilized throughout the nation. And all those calls obviously generate a response, police, fire, EMS. And so depending on the type of situation, the response obviously can change. Next slide, please. So who do we dispatch for? Who are we responsible for? What kind of services are we providing? Who are we connecting the public with? So we are the Sheriff's Office 911 Center, which means we provide dispatching services and call processing for the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office is a large multi-jurisdictional organization. They have a large footprint throughout the county. They're providing law enforcement services to the unincorporated areas of the county, county parks, government buildings. They have the VTA contracts, so the light rail station platforms, the buses themselves. The Sheriff's Office is spread out throughout multiple beats throughout the county. So it's not just one city, it's not just one area of the county. So again, for our dispatchers, maps play a critical role in understanding which units are responsible to respond to which type of call, which area requires a certain type of response based on the type of incident. The Sheriff's Office is also responsible for contract cities such as Cupertino, Saratoga, and Los Altos Hills. And then their Special Operations Division between CERT, air assets, bomb squad, et cetera. The Sheriff's Office touches most of the communities throughout Santa Clara County and has a very large footprint, and our dispatchers are responsible for connecting the public to those deputies when needed. Next slide, please. County Fire, we are the dispatch center for Santa Clara County Fire. County Fire provides fire protection for over 250,000 residents. Until recently, it was mostly the west side of the county. Now with the South County acclamation of South District, they're responsible for 19 fire stations throughout the county. They are also the operational and regional coordinator for mutual aid. And so what that means is we see all these wildfires that occur throughout the state and throughout the region over the last few years. County Fire and County Comm are responsible for coordinating those efforts from Santa Clara County. So on the operational component, any equipment that is to leave the county of Santa Clara from any fire department must go through County Comm and County Fire and be organized and put together into strike teams, task force, things of that nature. In addition to that, we are now the regional coordinator for Region 2 for Cal OES. And that means that basically the coastal range of California, including the Bay Area, is encompassed in that regional coordination responsibility. We are responsible for making sure that all assets in those counties are coordinated when they have to leave to go and support other incidents. So for instance, during the Palisades fire in January, we sent over 35 strike teams to Los Angeles in a 48-hour period, all out of county communications. Again, maps play a very critical role in kind of how we coordinate those efforts. Next slide, please. Beyond that, county EMS, we provide dispatching and call processing for the county EMS agency. They are responsible for providing ALS, advanced ambulance life support, for all of the municipalities within Santa Clara County, excluding the city of Palo Alto. So they have a very large footprint. Obviously, we're coordinating with other fire departments when they have fire calls that require EMS resources. We're taking calls for other agencies and dispatching ambulances to those calls. It's kind of a mix of responsibilities, but the EMS agency utilizes our services to provide that bridge to the public when needed. Next slide, please. And then county parks, critical mapping area that I'll get to a little bit later. Our dispatchers rely on maps heavily for the county parks. County parks, they service 28 regional parks. They have over 8 million visitors a year to those parks. They're protecting over 55,000 acres. You're dealing with waterways, trails, urban, rural. It's a very mixed bag of locations, and maps are critical in our dispatchers' ability to support both the park rangers that are helping the public, in emergency situations, but also just have a nice day, and the deputies that patrol those parks and provide the law enforcement aspect of the county park system. So Next slide, please. So when an emergency occurs, the public dials 911. You either call from your cell phone or your landline. Now, there's differences there. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. When you call from your landline, AT&T provides our dispatchers with your Annie Alley, or your automatic number identification or automatic location identification. Best case scenario, someone calls 911 from their landline. We know exactly who you are, exactly where you're at, what's your residence, what's your business, et cetera. We know now today in 2025, that's highly unlikely. The vast majority of our calls are from cell calls. And those cell calls come through, we actually just get your provider information and we get the cell tower that you're calling from. There is some technology that's been in place now for several years that we utilize to use for mapping in emergency situations, but we do not tap into it for non-emergency situations. So it's a rapid SOS platform that allows us to capture the GPS location of a cell phone when it's dialed 911 only and for a period of time so that we can track that caller. But in general, we're asking the caller for your location and we're looking for the caller to verify that location. So next slide, please. So how does it work? You have a dispatcher now at this point who is trying to ascertain the location of the emergency or the situation, and they're going to start gathering information so they can move that information along to the first responders, right, to get help started. This creates a request for service, and it can be either non-emergency or emergency. Regardless, there's a certain amount of time element involved as we're taking other calls and we're trying to move the public to the source of support that they need, which is either a fire department, a sheriff's deputy, et cetera. Next slide, please. And so again, the dispatchers utilize a CAD system to carry out all these functions. And the CAD is the foundational tool that our dispatchers require to do their job. They're not talking to each other in the control room. They're not speaking. They're not passing messages. It's all being done through the computer-aided dispatch system. And the map plays a critical role at multiple stages when it comes to that, which we'll kind of delve into here. But you can see kind of the process. You have a crime that occurs. You have a call that is made or text. You have a call taker who takes that call and begins processing information, going through a list of questions, trying to determine which type of crime, the severity of the crime, the time element, et cetera. And they're using that CAD to pass that information along to another dispatcher, a radio dispatcher, who then is talking to the first responders in the field. And so for our agency, the person that you're talking to on the phone when you call 911 is not the person that's talking to the first responder in the field who's responding. There's a process that's occurring, a workflow that's unfolding in our control room. And at the end point, the information is being passed to that deputy or that fire crew or that ambulance crew so that they can respond. And in theory, they're responding then based either to an emergency, code 3, or a non-emergency, code 1. Next slide, please. So critical information continues to be processed throughout the duration of the call, and information is processed through the CAD and in addition, the radio system. So there's a verbal component as well as an MDT component. And the equipment in the field has, and I'm sure everyone's seen these, right? The fire truck, the ambulance, the police car, they all have that MDT. They're getting different types of information depending on what type of call. They can see details in the event, but the dispatcher is verbalizing a lot of the information that's in the call at the same time so that the deputy or the fire crew can respond without having to look at the MDT, right? Because there's a safety element there. So we're relying on the radio and the CAD at the same time. Next slide, please. So we've all seen this. I mean, touched on it. I thought the MapQuest topic was very on point, at least for me. I did as well think that was peak technology at the time. But I know when I started in dispatch, the map book that you see right there, that is what we utilized. That is how we determined the appropriate location. We would ask somebody the address of their emergency. We would ask them if they could provide it. If they couldn't, we would work them through a very critical process to determine what that location was. Location, location, location is critical in dispatch. If we do not know where you're at and we cannot determine where you're at, then we cannot send you help. And so we can only provide so much assistance. Our goal is to get you the first responders to your location. I've had calls personally where I had people leave the victim and run down the street to find a street and cross street. We've had people where they have to dig through the mail to find an address. I've had people go out to a driveway and read a license plate of a car to us so that we could run the license plate to see where the registered owner lived. But all that goes into determining the appropriate location, and the map plays a critical role in that. And obviously, the technology has advanced quite a bit in the last decade, and it's allowed us to kind of move away from a lot of those older processes for determining location when needed. But in the old days, we used to utilize the map books, and we would literally call out map grids when we dispatch calls. So you think about the delay in verbalization, even of having to verbalize, Thomas Brothers, map grid, and get all that information on every single call. So we've transitioned out of that, fortunately, with new technology and better maps and better GIS. And so our dispatchers are greatly appreciative. That's for sure. I've had a new group of dispatchers start the academy a few weeks ago, and we brought out the map book, and they laughed because a couple of them never even seen a map book. So it just shows you the shift, I think, in the last decade when it comes to GIS technology and how things have evolved just in our everyday lives, let alone the public safety sphere. So you can see there on the left, that's the CAD screen that our dispatchers utilize to put information in. You can see there's a location verification field there. That's our geo file. And so for us as the county entity, we have all of the addresses within the county loaded into the system. And so that's critical for us because our dispatchers have to be very careful because there's multiple addresses that match just in different cities, right? We don't have just the city of Campbell, the city of San Jose, the city of Milpitas. We have everybody's geo files loaded into our system so that we can send resources where they are needed because we're a county entity. So that's the screen that the dispatchers are using to put in that address. And that is the first step. When you call 911, that is the first step. We are going to confirm that address. And when you give us the address and we confirm it, we pull up that map geo file and we can see it. We're going to ask verifying questions because we want to confirm that we know you're right. People obviously in an emergency could spit something out. We've had people say their address. Well, it's not the address they're at. We ask you what's the address of the emergency. You might give your home address, but you're at your friend's house or your aunt's house. Situations like that do happen. So you're going to get follow-up questions like what's the cross street? What city are you in? What building are you in? Things like that, try to verify. And the dispatchers are using that geo file to confirm that information for themselves because they know before they hit send, they want to have 100% confidence that they've ascertained that location. So that's where the geo file and the mapping starts to play a part for our dispatchers. It allows them to not have to second guess the information. They're able to move on to other critical questions, law enforcement related, medical related, start providing information to the caller or to the first responder, and they can move on. And I can tell you, once you know you've ascertained the location and you've looked at that map and you've looked at that geo file, you do get a certain sense of relief because you know now you have a location, you can get help to somebody at the very least. So it plays a critical role. Next slide, please. Mapping is a critical tool. Aside from our phones and our CAD, the map system really is, I've told people it's like the fire hose on the fire truck. You're no good without the hose to put water on the fire, right? It's that critical of a tool for our folks. No help can be sent until that accurate location is ascertained. And it plays a very critical role for us. You can see there in the upper right-hand side of the screen, that's a snapshot of our mapping system for a fire-related call. You can see what it looks like. Dispatchers are seeing that with an overlay then of a geo file, depending on the type of call. Next slide, please. So how does it work in each community for us? It is different. Law enforcement, fire dispatching, and medical dispatching are all different. From a law enforcement perspective, it's very fast-paced. It's happening in real time. In most situations, you either have emergencies that are involving people and crimes that are occurring, and there's not a lot of time to delay. And so if someone's calling, we're trying to determine location. But on the flip side, the maps are critically utilized for how we support deputies in the field. We are not using AVL-based dispatch at this time for our deputies in the field, although a lot of agencies do. They can track their units. But when deputies are conducting vehicle stops or pedestrian stops, or there's pursuits, or there's foot chases, that map is up with our dispatcher, and they're using it in real time to confirm information. There are situations that occur where you might not hear the deputy very well because of the radio traffic, but you hear a certain street. So the dispatcher then is looking at the map to try to determine, oh, this is the location. So it's critical in that situation. Perimeters, foot chases, things of that nature. The dispatcher is required to utilize the map to direct incoming units safely to the appropriate area. Deputies are responding lights and sirens. They don't have the ability to necessarily be looking at their map very specifically. The dispatcher is going to tell them, we need you to go, Main Street and 4th. We need you to go to Shannon and None Muno, things of that nature. I can give an experience that I relied on my map critically as a radio dispatcher in the sheriff's office years ago, before these maps were this good, but using a map book. And we'd had a deputy that went out on a car stop, cleared the car stop. And then about a minute and a half to 2 minutes later, I heard just a garbled radio message, and I saw the deputy's call sign come up on my push to talk on my CAD. And I went back out to the deputy and I got nothing. And I went back out to the deputy again and I got nothing. And it was a Sunday night, about 9:30 in the evening, so there wasn't a lot going on. And the other units in the area came up and said, did you hear where he was? What did he have? Nothing. So what I did hear was 2 letters from a street, Stockton Street. So I heard "sta" when he came up on the radio, and that was it before the traffic went off. So I knew he'd done a car stop. I looked at the map book. I looked at the map. I saw what street he was on, and I followed that map, and several blocks up was a cross street of Stockton. And so I directed all the units to respond, Bascom at Stockton, code 3. They arrived. They found him down in the street. He'd been in a fight. He'd made a stop on somebody, hadn't told us, got hurt, was semi-unconscious and unable to speak on the radio. Perfect example of he needed ambulance transport. He was not able to speak on the radio, but because I was able to look at a map and go back to his last location and then find that cross street in that map, we were able to direct help to him. So it's critical having that visualization. It's our ability to have some sense of kind of eyes in the sky almost for how we protect our deputies and support them when they're doing their job in the field. And that's just one of hundreds of incidents every day that happen in our control room where dispatchers are utilizing that map to help facilitate kind of the immediate needs of our deputies, whether it's, again, a pursuit or just simply, hey, I can't find the residence. Can you pull up the map and tell me, is it around the corner or is it's as simple as that? So from a law enforcement perspective, it's critical for us. It provides a great sense of security for the dispatcher to know that they can kind of see the area that the dispatchers are sending deputies to. Next slide, please. When it comes to fire dispatching, mapping is even more critical. Mapping plays a key role in our response configurations for our fire department and for any fire department. So you have station assignments and you have station-based dispatching for equipment. We also have AVL-based dispatching. We've just transitioned to AVL-based dispatching a little over a year ago for county fire. However, what our system does, it takes into account what type of equipment is needed for what type of call based on which station, based on which geographic location, and based on which response is coming in. And so that's all loaded into the map, and that's all built into our CAD for our dispatchers. And it allows our dispatchers to function more efficiently. If we go back several years before some of this technology and this mapping capability was in place for our dispatchers, they were having to pull out run cards. They have these big Rolodexes. They would pull this out and they would have to read through to see that there's a type of response. We have a structure fire. It's a second alarm. I need additional equipment. What equipment goes from which station? The computer-aided dispatch system now is speaking with the map and pulling that data and helping make that determination on which equipment should be going. So it cuts down on delays exponentially. In addition to that, you can see here we have hydrants are in the map. There's a lot of layers the fire department uses. But for us on the dispatch side, response zones, auto aid, and mutual aid is also critical for us because that's hard for us to remember on a regular basis. You have such a large entity, 19 stations, urban, rural. To remember exactly which response is going to which area is very difficult. And the map helps our dispatchers do that, which means the right response goes on the right type of calls. And so what that means is auto aid is a perfect example. We share jurisdictional borders with multiple agencies. We have agreements with those agencies. In some cases, their fire station may be sitting next to the jurisdictional border and a call could come in. That fire department that's not responsible for our area could be a minute down the road, whereas our station may be several minutes away. The auto aid agreements based on the maps programmed into our CAD will automatically recommend the outside agency to come and assist and go first. And so we would reach out to Mountain View, for instance, and say, you're up for this, you're on auto aid, you're going on this call as opposed to dispatching our own equipment. So things like that, the map plays a critical role. It also plays a critical role in routing and determination of what type of equipment. There's a slew of equipment that is available to the fire department, different types of engines, type 1s, which are the standard fire trucks that everyone sees, type 3s, which are the wildland response vehicles. You have the trucks, with the ladders, we have tillers, and all that's great, but not everything can go on every road. And as you get into the hills and the mountains of Santa Cruz and you get into the rural areas, this is all programmed into the system to make sure that the appropriate response is laid out. So we don't send a truck over a bridge that can't support the weight of that truck and then lose that truck, jeopardize that crew, and in turn never send help to the appropriate location. So the map plays a critical role in how we lay out our response configuration for all of our fire needs. Next slide, please. Mapping and EMS dispatching is incredibly important. In fact, this morning at 8 o'clock, we loaded and launched a new mapping system for our AVL-based dispatching in our MedPod. This is like a screenshot of what it looks like. So we're using AVL dispatch for our ambulances. It helps us rely on closest available resource because we're dispatching all throughout the county as calls are coming in. And our dispatchers are moving ambulances to pre-designated posts based on geographic necessity. And so the map plays a critical role in that. They're using those maps. The system will provide recommendations, but it's not taking into account necessarily time of day, traffic patterns, et cetera. So the dispatcher is using the map and the visualization to say, yes, you're recommending this unit, but I know that's northbound 680 at such and such time of day. The traffic will be very tight. There's no way that it's going to hit its mark. It's better to send this ambulance that might be farther away, but I can look at the map and recognize that there's a need for another decision to be made. So the map plays a critical role in ambulance dispatching as well. So next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. So in closing, I think it's critical, or it's obvious how critical maps are to the job that we do as a dispatch center. They are really another layer of like a visualization for us. It helps us provide the service that we do to our first responders and to the public. And without them, we would not be as effective as we are. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Nick. So due to the time limit, I guess we were going to skip the Q&A sessions. If you have any questions for those who are